Welcome to the Mystic Reef. It's located in Riverside, California. The Mystic Reef are experts in livestock and maintaining fishes. Adam begins to get into more details when he explains how important it is to have intense lighting for your corals.
Lighting is really important for the corals. Basically, they are photosynthetic, and they do live in the ocean under tropical sunlight. So having intense lighting is one of the more important things for them to grow, as well as water flow. The corals really need strong water flow. They come from a reef out there. They're getting pounded by wave action all day and night. So you got to make sure that the water flow is sufficient. Water flow is actually more important than lighting for a lot of corals. And if you don't have enough water flow, you're just basically going to get a lot of detritus and waste and stuff settling down on the coral, which will eventually choke it out, cause algae to grow and stuff like that. Proper water flow helps keep all that stuff in the water column so that way the filter can remove it. This is a good example of what's considered a reef tank, a community tank. Basically, everything in there is live and growing. The corals, even the rock technically is alive, has a bunch of bacteria and stuff that actually filter the water. And that was where the big breakthrough came about 10-15 years ago. People started using this live rock that's been cycled, came off the reef to help maintain stability in their tank as well as filter the water. And a lot of this livestock comes from the oceans, coming from Fiji, Tonga, Australia, and even some of these, like this angelfish here. It's a potter's angel that comes from Hawaii. So that's actual a United States fish. So we like that guy. And then some of the other ones, like the clownfish in here, those are tank raised. So those are actually grown on a farm in Florida, and then they ship them to us, and we overnight them, and we take them out and let them grow. The tank raised fish are going to do a lot better than wild caught fish. Are less likely to get diseases or bring in pests or parasites from the wild. So anytime we can, you want to make sure you go with a tank raised alternative. Unfortunately for saltwater, there's not that many fish that can be tank raised yet. Kind of like the freshwater hobby began 50 years ago. It was all wild caught, and nowadays about 90% of the freshwater fish are all tank grown on farms. So hopefully someday, with advances in breeding, we're going to have more and more fish tank raised, which will lessen the demand for wild caught fish in the different oceans and stuff.
Adam informs the importance of flow for your tank. He gives out several different names of power heads that produces flow for your tank, which basically gives the fish a more feel like they're still on the ocean. So the flow basically makes up for the waves. So Adam gives into more details of how technology is still advancing.
Okay, like we're talking about, flow is really important for the tank, sometimes more important than lighting on the coral. So there's a bunch of different ways you can get flow into your tank, whether it's from your normal power head or a pump in the back of the aquarium, or the more popular propeller type pumps, which are like these guys right here. These are even more advanced. These are pretty cool. They have the motor mounted on the outside, and it's coupled to the pump on the inside of the tank, and basically you're keeping the heat from the motor outside the aquarium while getting all the flow on the inside. And also the flow rate on those is controllable. You can sit there, ramp it up to higher or lower, and it'll basically interval like a wave, so it'll go speed up and slow down to try and mimic nature as much as possible. So that's where a lot of the cool stuff has been advancing in the past 10 to 15 years, is with power heads and better pumps for the aquarium that mimic more appropriate wave action. Gentle currents, but still being strong enough to keep everything moving around.
Adam explains the surface areas inside the rocks and how it basically filters out your water for your aquarium.
Alright, these are live rocks, and they might look just like a normal rock to you. You say, what makes a rock alive? And basically it's all the bacteria, as well as different phytoplanktons, microalgae, and different things that these are bringing in from the wild that are going to help add to the biodiversity of the tank. And basically these rocks, if you look at some of these pieces, these are just old corals that fall off the reef, get broken off during storms, wave action. So these corals, it's natural for the corals to just break off. That rock will tumble down and collect in different rubble zones, and basically, different other organisms, different algae, feather dusters, fan worms, little tiny crustaceans will start living on that rock. And you bring it into your aquarium and at your house. You put it in your aquarium into good salt water, and it's going to basically, some of that stuff will come back alive. Little algae start growing on the rock, as well as filtering the water with all the different bacteria that's on the inside of the rock. It's really porous, and that's what makes it a lot better than just taking a rock out of your backyard, which is completely dense. There's no interior surface area where any of the bacteria are going to break it down. So this stuff has more surface area on the inside than it does on the outside of the rock, and that's where a lot of the the anaerobic bacteria are, and that's what breaks down the nitrates into nitrogen gas and basically helps prevent the tank from becoming toxic.
Adam demonstrates the importance of fragmenting your corals and how they get them to grow in other people's tanks.
Okay, one of the crazy things about keeping saltwater tanks in the past 15 years, more recently in the past 10 years, 5 and 10 years, is the ability to not only keep corals, but actually get them to grow and propagate them inside your tank. And all these corals that we maintain at the Mystic Reef, they're actually grown here or at our house tanks, and then we propagate them or fragment them, also called fragging, and that's how we make little babies to sell for other people to put in their tanks and have them grow from there.
Adam also begins to inform the importance of seagrass and how they can benefit in your fish tank.
Alright, this is kind of a different tank than we're talking about. We're talking a lot about rock and how important it is. This tank has very little rock, and basically this is a different style. You don't really see this too often. I wanted to create a seagrass tank. It's typical of like a nearshore environment where there's not going to be as much rock and you have just open sand beds. And the seagrasses are actually a true plant, whereas a lot of the other stuff you see in the ocean is a type of algae. There's very few actual plants that live in the ocean, but these have roots and leaves and actually flowers just like a normal plant would on land. And they kind of offer a different environment. Different species will live in the seagrass beds. They're really an important, like a nursery type environment for a lot of different fish. Sea turtles, manatees, all use those for feeding as well as breeding grounds and raising their young. So
That will conclude the experience at the Mystic Reef.